22 Teachings of the True Path of the Buddha. The more you listen, the more you absorb, and sorrow will vanish. In meditation, the Blessed One attained what we have not. It is simply that we have distanced ourselves from clinging and separated from sorrow. We no longer feel anxiety, nor do we fear. Let us not fear aging, and we can overcome death. Listen, monks, the matter that concerns me is all of this. Every virtuous deed is like a flame burning in the forest. In order to sustain the flame, it consumes everything in its path. The more it burns, the larger the flame grows. So it is with negativity. Anger, sorrow, greed, and fear, they feed on the fuel within us, fueling an unquenchable blaze of hatred and avarice that continues until we liberate ourselves from the cycle of rebirth. Suppose someone cares only for material enjoyment in life and works hard to amass great wealth. Yet in that person's heart, contradictions remain, sinking ever deeper into discontent, never knowing enough, and always plagued by worry. And suppose that wealth is lost, what then? But if one can sever these bonds, one need not worry about the future nor carry the burdens of the past. One can remain calm and free, fully mindful in the present, steadfast on the middle way. In the end, one will come to experience true worldly bliss. In the transient world, one sees the imperishable within sorrow, the joy within cruelty, the human love amid ugliness, and the goodness hidden by ignorance. Once we shatter such delusions, all suffering and all worries naturally vanish from our hearts. Loving kindness and forgiveness begin, awakening the compassion that all beings share. If you are not enlightened, you will not perceive the wonder of awakening. And if you earnestly seek enlightenment, you too will become free. Light your own lamp. Be the lamp of your own soul. Awaken. Practice the true teachings and focus intently on your inner self. Rely on your own inner refuge. Do not lean on anyone else. All is supreme. You must learn to find inner security amidst all change and persevere without giving in. This is the supreme truth that does not reside in emptiness but within each one's heart. Cultivating mindfulness upon mindfulness is endless. Transforming hatred into love is the most fundamental principle. There are three things that are never eclipsed by darkness: the sun, the moon, and the true face of truth. Truth can never be buried. If all these deeds have truly been performed by you, then your desire for liberation is naturally intense. But if your mind is full of defilements, then you will endure constant inner probing and, as before, yearn desperately to escape this suffering. Even if a Nula were to be reborn as an outcast, one must trust. For a person to transform, self-awareness is the first necessity. While misfortunes can be counted on 10 fingers, acts of virtue may number in the hundreds. If our ancestors once committed errors and sown unwholesome karma, then their remaining years are like pebbles sinking to the bottom of a pond. But if they perform meritorious deeds, it is like fragrant oil rising to the surface of the water. Thus, whatever karma is sown will be reaped not only in this life, but in many lifetimes of reincarnation. The body of this life is not meant solely for this existence. Even after it decays, it remains entangled in the ocean of rebirth. What you sow is what you reap. Language, like a sharp knife, can imperceptibly kill. The Blessed One. When I passed by, I blossomed everywhere, exuding a fragrance so pervasive that even the teachers who both taught and practiced the precepts were drawn in by my scent. They longed to repent before me. All matters were then settled. We awaited your consent to allow these two teachers to enter the Sangha. Monk Milana, you should let them go back. Those two teachers had disrespected the Buddha. The Blessed One continued, "Listen, dear ones. Never think that you have been disgraced by the Blessed One. The issue is not that they have offended me, but whether those two teachers have truly practiced the Dharma correctly." The teacher replied, "Well said. Master Sariputta understood my meaning. If a person is born with defilements, they must have the courage to admit them. This is the first step toward correcting mistakes. They must be cautious in both speech and action. As a monk, one must repent before the community. The Blessed One stated, "Grant your grace. For this dispute has disturbed the peace of the Sangha, it should not be allowed to continue. Invite them in and arrange proper lodging for them." They have been residing at Master Otta's place for many months. He and the other monks are exemplars of compassion, loving, and kind. The coming months are extremely important. I have seen far into the future in that time. Parents and children will be at odds. Siblings will harbor hatred toward each other. Couples will be discordant. Houses will burn, and all sorts of unwholesome acts will occur. People will harm one another because of race, language, and belief. This is the cause of disunity and strife. Through the enlightenment of all, how can humanity transform love into something that eradicates division and allows us to see one another as brethren? I must set a precedent in that age. Our standard will rescue humanity from being scorched by fire. Both of these teachers can reconcile differences. I am delighted that they have recognized their mistakes and chosen a peaceful path. This will serve as an example to all, so that future disputes within the Sangha are avoided. We shall establish a rule called the 7 Precepts for Ending Disputes. Master Anula will clearly present these 7 points for all to hear. Remember, doubt in one's own mind is a dangerous disease. It divides love like a poison that kills friendship. It is like thorns that pierce to the very bone. Never forget that our very thoughts shape who we are. The Blessed One, the teacher most dedicated to the precepts, added, "Very true. Previously, I was full of arrogance and conceit. What you say is not wrong. In my heart, I harbored envy toward you, Blessed One, in this matter. I too had my faults. Please, Blessed One, show compassion toward us. I beg for your forgiveness. I have merely pointed the way, but in practice, each teacher must rely on their own efforts. Everyone must diligently uphold the 5 precepts. Then, let us today resolve that for our descendants we must truly love and protect them. And for our elders, we must show the utmost care and tenderness. We must understand those who strive diligently. Even the weak, however flawed, deserve generous treatment. We must remember that such opportunities abound in our lives. Venerable Buddha, sometimes we err in our actions. If you feel remorse for these misdeeds, then when you commit a fault, you must constantly correct your behavior. Our thoughts create us. If our thoughts are impure, they manifest in actions. And from those actions arises suffering just as a wheel rolls in the direction of a person's steps. When you nurture wholesome thoughts and actions, you generate good karma and happiness that will remain with you throughout this life. So what should we do when faced with life's vicissitudes? Please instruct us. Over these 3 days, I have witnessed how tiny droplets merge into a vast ocean. There are 3 truths that anyone can realize. First, a magnanimous heart. Second, sincere words. And third, a compassionate nature devoted throughout life. These 3 maxims are the foundation for building humanity, so that all beings may experience love and kindness, whether poor or rich. Life brings suffering. Only the nature of each person's sorrow differs. The monks and nuns, the teachings I now pass on to you must be deeply contemplated, carefully observed, and applied in your practice. First, you must personally realize them before you can share them with others. From today onward, you bear the heavy responsibility of spreading the supreme truth to all beings. Do not hastily believe anything, even my words, until you have applied your own learning and wisdom to ascertain that there is no further doubt. All phenomena are impermanent, born and dying, arising and ceasing. You must be ever diligent to attain liberation. In 3 months from today, the Tathagata will enter the great parinirvana. Now follows a dialogue regarding contradictory statements on rebirth and the non-self. A scholar said, "You speak completely oppositely. You believe in rebirth, yet deny the existence of a permanent self. Without a self, how can there be rebirth?" The Blessed One replied, "You are not wrong, yet these do not conflict. The absence of a self does not preclude rebirth. Consider the mango. You plant its seed in the ground, and it grows into a mango tree and eventually bears fruit. Is this not the mango's rebirth? Here I am demonstrating the natural process." A disciple then inquired, "Venerable, the first of the four noble truths you stated is that all is suffering. The world is suffering birth, aging, death, and the suffering inherent in life. Is this not a negative view? You are not mistaken, but why then should we not also speak of the cessation of suffering? When speaking of ending suffering, one must first understand what suffering is. One must show the way to overcome it so that it cannot be deemed entirely negative. You have come to dismantle the world's illusions, urging the young to become monks. I do not dismantle the world. Rather, I wish for everyone to let go of false pleasures and return to the origin of life. To tread this path requires courage. Only the truly courageous can walk this wide world, holding a bowl in hand with every breath mindful as if treading on a razor's edge. A child who is not yet awakened might elevate their family, but could also bring great harm. In the same way, a monk who regards the world as his family, such an awakened monk can transform the world." Another replied, "You speak rightly. You taught non-violence towards all living beings, which transformed warriors into practitioners. They wish to uphold righteousness, yet feel perpetual guilt. It is indeed a transformation from violence that cannot be entirely quenched, but love can achieve this. It is nature's law. All fear death. When you realize that others harbor similar thoughts, you will naturally let go of violence. Fleeting joys may rob us of our true possessions. These possessions are the supreme serenity. And once we are seduced by such fleeting pleasures, letting them embed deeply in our minds is like driving a long nail, perpetually anchoring our sorrow and joy. When faced with such a situation, you must focus on your breath. Breathe in slowly and deeply until your energy is filled with awareness. Then gently exhale until you reach the state of supreme tranquility. Once our emotions are soothed as when a mother uses her gentle nature to lead her child away from delusion, our inner wisdom can discern truth from illusion, differentiate self from other. This very differentiation often leads us into error. Human beings are bound by their feelings, and greed is the cause of our straying from truth within the cycle of rebirth. From birth until death, we are haunted by fear, illness, and sudden demise. These only serve to increase our ignorance and dread. Therefore, one must eradicate all delusions. When you step beyond delusion, the mind becomes free, unshackled, serene, stable, and peaceful. The teaching of the Four Noble Truths is thus summarized. The first truth: no one can escape suffering, it follows us like a shadow. The second truth: the cause of suffering is ignorance, greed, anger, depression, anxiety, fear, and despair, all stemming from clinging. The third truth: the cessation of suffering comes through wisdom, understanding, and truth about oneself and life. Such insight ends suffering and brings about bliss. The fourth truth: the path to ending suffering is the Noble Eightfold Path, nurtured by mindfulness and right awareness, leading to concentration and insight that liberates us from all pain. What is this path? It is none other than the Eightfold Path. Right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration guiding all our conduct. And I am the one who shows you the way The Dharma is like a spider's web, gradually weaving an exquisite net. The natural world creates myriad forms. Its beauty is boundless. When our minds desire something, we all believe that once attained, it will surely bring joy. But when that dream becomes reality, our hearts are left hollow. Do you know why? The birth of desire is much like wishing for something. Once achieved, it is merely the fulfillment of a long-held longing, and the resistance of life's flow disappears like water slipping by. Therefore, in human life, nothing is certain, right? That is correct. Let go of the illusory cravings of the world. Forget about your life and death, for they bring you no benefit, even if you fear the disappearance of your existence. First, deny its very existence, then search for a hidden self within. So many people in the world suffer from material poverty, deprived, lacking, and enduring every kind of injustice. Many suffer spiritually. When you feel compelled to leap into the depths, why not notice the beautiful scenery before you? Anything taken to an extreme, even transient joy, inevitably leads to suffering. Therefore, adhere to the middle way, and you will clearly perceive the nature of things and achieve endless peace that lasts for countless ages. We often observe and criticize the faults of others, believing that only scriptures and scholars can cleanse their sins, as in offering sacrifices and libations. Yet I affirm that the root of all sin lies within ourselves. Only by opening the door to our own liberation can we be saved. Suppose someone wishes to cross to the other side, what should they do? I believe that if the river is shallow, they may wade across. If it is too deep, they must either row or swim. And if one does not wish to wade, swim, or row, then what? They can only plead with the gods. When one does so, a bank appears on the other side. Such a person, we call them ignorant and extremely foolish. Similarly, if one relies solely on ritual, desire, and ignorance, how can they find the truth in the liberating Dharma? If one only prays or makes offerings, they will remain stagnant. They will never move from their starting point. The earth is our foundation, and the blue sky gives us a space to be free. Our bodies reside within them. What is the supreme truth? It can only be experienced personally, understood through self-awareness without clinging to thoughts or desires. Only by feeling and maintaining equilibrium will one realize these things, then one will no longer sense the existence of myriad things. What difference is there when the weather changes, trees wither, and leaves fall? Surely we can perceive that. Indeed, wisdom is ever present. In the sun, the moon, the stars, the galaxies, and the supreme truth. Everyone can achieve the enlightenment I experience today, a transformation that triumphs over desire, anger, delusion, greed, and hunger. Though many things appear before us, our heart remains steadfast, unshaken. I once vowed that even at the cost of my life, I would attain the truth. Ultimately, I have witnessed the truth. Save us. Please teach us the way to realize the wholesome Dharma. A messenger said, "Please, sir, spare my son. I beg you, return my son to me." Bodhisattva said, "Please save my child." Messenger, "I can revive the child, but you must perform a few tasks. Go to any house in the city and ask them for a single mustard seed." Yes, I will go immediately. But remember, the house you ask must be one where no one has ever experienced a death. Yes, understood, Venerable Bodhisattva. Excuse me, may I have a mustard seed? Not allowed here, I have one seed only. Now please tell me, has anyone in your house ever died? Well, what do you mean? My parents passed away 6 months ago. Then I'm sorry, I cannot take a seed from your house. You see, all beings are born and must die. This is nature's law, whether old or young, wise or foolish, everyone must die. But if I had told you these truths earlier, would you have believed me? The moon's glow hangs in the sky like this supreme truth. Every night, the moon waxes until it is full, then wanes until it disappears, only to begin the cycle anew. Yet it is never lost, it merely hides from our sight. Your child is not dead. It lives within your heart, isn't it? Calm your mind, and you will understand these things. The true essence of life, like the shadow of a suffering human being, follows us throughout our lives. Yet the cause of suffering is our clinging to external conditions. Just realize that nothing in the universe can last forever. Only then can you grasp the key to liberation that lies in the transformation of the heart. Whether sorrow floods in or joy overflows, maintain equanimity in both. Practice thus, and the chains of suffering will naturally break. You will come to understand the ultimate truth, and with expanding wisdom, you will see that living and dying, coming together and parting, are not two but one. If someone adheres too strictly to any principle, eventually they lose the freedom of their spirit and become rigid, lacking flexibility. But if one blindly follows preconceived notions, believing that one's own faith is the only truth and denying all else, then the freedom of thought is completely lost, leaving only a kind of doctrinal rigidity that occupies and conflicts within the human mind. Indeed, without any faith at all, one is even more constrained. Thought is an incredibly powerful energy. It can completely dominate you, but when clung too tightly, it becomes the greatest obstacle on the spiritual path. If you let it bind you, the door to truth will never open. If everyone follows your teachings, will they no longer be bound? The evidence of one's own practice, the path I have set forth, it is not merely a principle or a sacred scripture. Philosophy is but a straightforward perception, and that too is an impermanent truth. Yet, dear ones, if people regard your path as an unchanging principle, then my path is meant for practice, not to be leaned on, worshipped, or clung to without practical application. All my knowledge is like a raft. You may use it to cross the river, but once you have done so, must you carry the raft on your head? Still, there remains one sentiment that I cannot easily set aside. Love is divided into three types: joy, sorrow, and tranquility. These three emotions are ever present in the body, surging like a flame and then returning to calm. I suggest that first you examine the intensity of your feelings, understand and realize their origins. Whether joy or sorrow, you must trace them to their source. Once you identify that source, you will discover that everything is not self. And we speak of it like the vast blue sky, empty yet all, encompassing like a great canvas. Continue to abide in that, and in time you will see that the previous sparks will gradually subside. A state of supreme tranquility deep within your heart will no longer be disturbed. Look inward deeply, discern what is mistaken or misguided, and you will find that the hardest to overcome is that fragile, easily broken nature, for ignorance is the root of all afflictions. My insight arises from meditation. Meditation can dispel ignorance. Beyond meditation, acts of prayer, asceticism, ritual offerings, or any other forms cannot achieve this. If even a slight displeasure from others is enough to unsettle you, then that is the truth. For most offerings are merely attempts to win favor. Do not let sweet words seduce you. If you are criticized and feel a bit of sorrow, that is acceptable, but never express anger, for in it you will only reveal what you lack. Only by confronting one's own shortcomings can one move forward. If life is truly filled with suffering, you will have no time to complain. If life is too indulgent, where will you find the strength? Instead of harboring resentment for everything that has not reached its extreme, act without shame, with complete personal integrity. Your destiny springs from within. When you choose your path, you determine your fate. Do not dwell excessively on the past. Live fully in the present and look forward to a bright tomorrow. Now follows a dialogue concerning various teachings and examples. Some have said that you speak completely oppositely, believing in rebirth yet denying the existence of a self. Without a self, how can there be rebirth? No, you are not mistaken. However, these do not conflict. Without a self, there can still be rebirth. Have you ever seen a mango? We plant its seed in the ground and it grows into a mango tree, eventually bearing fruit. Is this not the mango's rebirth? Here you seem to be denying the natural characteristic. Venerable, the first of the Four Noble Truths that you presented is, everything is suffering. The world is suffering birth, suffering, death, and even life itself is full of pain. Isn't this a negative view? You are not wrong. But then why do we speak of the cessation of suffering afterwards? When speaking of ending suffering, one must first explain what suffering is. I am merely showing the way to overcome it so that it cannot be said that everything is entirely negative. You have come here to dismantle this world's illusions, urging the youth to become monks. I am not destroying the world. I wish for everyone to abandon false pleasures and return to the source of life. Walking this path requires courage. Only the truly courageous can manage in this vast world, holding a bowl with every breath fully attentive, as if treading on a knife's edge. A child who is not yet awakened might bring his family prosperity, but he might also cause them great harm. Similarly, when a monk regards the whole world as his family, such an awakened monk can transform the world. You speak very well. You taught the way of non-harming, which turned warriors into practitioners. They wish to demonstrate righteousness, yet carry a constant sense of guilt. It is indeed a transformation of violence that cannot be permanently extinguished, but love can accomplish this. It is nature's law. All fear death. When you realize that others have similar thoughts, you will naturally let go of violence. Fleeting pleasures may rob us of our true treasures. These treasures are the supreme serenity. Once we are seduced by such fleeting joys and let them take deep root in our minds, it is as if a long nail is driven in, perpetually anchoring our sorrows and joys. In such moments, you must focus intently on your breath. Inhale slowly and deeply until your energy is filled with awareness. Then gently exhale, reaching that state of supreme tranquility. When our emotions are calmed, it is like when a gentle mother uses her tenderness to steer her child away from the path of delusion. Then your wisdom will clearly discern truth from illusion, distinguishing you from others. This very differentiation often leads us astray. Human beings are bound by their feelings, and it is greed that causes us to drift away from truth within the cycle of rebirth. From the moment we are born until we die, we are plagued by fear, illness, and sudden death. These only serve to increase our ignorance and fear. Therefore, one must eliminate all delusions. Once you step beyond these illusions, the mind becomes free, liberated from its chains, serene, stable, and at peace. The teaching of the Four Noble Truths can thus be summarized as follows. 1. The first truth. No one can escape suffering, it follows us like a shadow. 2. The second truth. The cause of suffering is ignorance, greed, anger, depression, worry, fear, and clinging to the self. 3. The third truth. The cessation of suffering is achieved through wisdom, through understanding the truth about oneself and life. This wisdom ends suffering and gives rise to bliss. 4. The fourth truth. The path to the end of suffering is the Noble Eightfold Path, which is nourished by mindfulness and right awareness, leading to concentration and insight that liberates us from all pain. What is this path? It is none other than the Eightfold Path, having right view, right thought, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration guiding all our conduct. And I am the one who shows you this path. The Dharma is like a spider's web, gradually weaving an intricate net. The natural world creates myriad phenomena. Its beauty is limitless and infinite. When our minds long for something, we all believe that once we attain it, we will be joyful, but when that desire is fulfilled, our hearts feel empty. Do you know why? The birth of desire is like the yearning for something. Once it is achieved, it is merely the fulfillment of a long-held wish, and the resistance inherent in life vanishes like water slipping past one's ear. Thus, in human life, nothing is certain, isn't it? Indeed, forget those illusory desires of the world. Forget your life and death, for they bring no benefit to you even if you fear the disappearance of your existence. First, deny its very existence, and then seek a hidden self within. How many people in this world suffer due to material circumstances? Their lives are impoverished, they lack nourishment, and they endure every kind of injustice. Many suffer mentally. When you feel compelled to leap into the depths, why not behold the beauty before you? Anything taken to an extreme, even the briefest joy, inevitably leads to suffering. Therefore, adhere firmly to the middle way, and you will clearly see the nature of things and attain boundless peace lasting for countless ages. We often observe and condemn the faults of others, believing that only canonical scriptures and scholars can cleanse their sins, such as through offerings and sacrifices. Yet I assert that the root of all sin lies within ourselves. It is only through our own efforts that we can open the door to liberation. If someone wishes to cross over, what must they do? I believe that if the river is shallow, they can wade across. If it is deep, they must row or swim. And if one does not wish to wade, swim, or row, then what? They can only beseech the deities, and when they do so, a bank appears on the other side. Such a person we call ignorant, an utter fool. In the same way, if one relies solely on ritual, desire, and ignorance, how can they ever find the truth and the liberating dharma? If one only prays or makes offerings, they will remain stagnant. They will never leave their starting point. The earth is our foundation, and the blue sky gives us a realm of freedom. Our bodies dwell within these. What, then, is the supreme truth? It can only be experienced firsthand, understood through self-realization. Without clinging to thoughts or desires, only by feeling and maintaining balance can one grasp these truths. You will then no longer perceive the existence of myriad phenomena. What difference does it make if the weather changes, or if trees wither and leaves fall? Surely we can perceive that. Indeed, wisdom is present everywhere. In the sun, the moon, the stars, the galaxies, and in the supreme truth itself. Each person can achieve the enlightenment I have experienced today, a transformation attained through the arduous overcoming of desire, anger, illusion, greed, and hunger. Though all things may appear before our eyes, our heart remains steadfast and unshaken. I once vowed that even if I had to sacrifice myself, I would attain the truth. In the end, I have witnessed the truth. Save us. I beg you, teach us the path to attain the wholesome dharma. A messenger said, "Please, sir, spare my son. I implore you, return my son to me." Bodhisattva said, "Please save my child." Messenger, I can bring the child back to life, but you must do a few tasks. Go to any house in the city and ask them for a single mustard seed. Yes, I will go at once. But remember, the house from which you ask for the mustard seed must be one where no one has ever experienced a death. Yes, understood. Venerable Bodhisattva. Excuse me, may I have a mustard seed? Not permitted. I have only one seed. Oh, but you ask for merely one seed, don't you? Now, please tell me, has anyone in your household ever died? Well, what are you saying? My parents passed away 6 months ago. Then I am sorry I cannot take a mustard seed from your house. You see, all things in the world are destined to be born and to die. That is the law of nature, whether old or young, wise or foolish, everyone must die. So, if I had spoken these truths to you before, would you have believed me? The moon hangs in the sky like this supreme truth. Every night it waxes, grows larger until full, then wanes until it disappears, only to begin the cycle again. Yet it is never truly lost, it simply hides from our sight. Your child is not dead. It lives within you, correct? Calm your mind and you will understand these things. The true essence of life, like the shadow of a suffering human, follows us throughout our lives. Yet the cause of our suffering is our attachment to external conditions. Just understand that nothing in the universe can last forever. Only then can you unlock the key to liberation found in the transformation of the heart. Whether sorrow overwhelms you or joy abounds, maintain a steady composure in both. Practice in this way, and the shackles of suffering will naturally fall away. You will come to grasp the ultimate truth, and with ever-expanding wisdom, you will understand that life and death, union and separation are not two but one. If someone clings rigidly to any principle, eventually they will lose the freedom of their spirit and become inflexible, lacking fluidity. Conversely, if one blindly follows such preconceptions, believing that one's own faith is the sole truth and dismissing all else, then the freedom of thought is utterly lost, leaving only a doctrinal rigidity that dominates and conflicts within the human mind. In fact, without any faith, one is even more constrained. Thought is an immensely powerful energy. It can completely overpower you, but when held too tightly, it becomes the greatest hindrance on the path of practice. If it binds you, the door to truth will remain forever closed. If everyone follows what you teach, will they no longer be bound? The evidence of one's own practice, the path I have set forth, it is not merely a principle or a sacred scripture. Philosophy is simply a direct perception, and that too is an impermanent truth. Yet, dear ones, if people come to view your path as an unchanging principle, then my path is meant for practice, not to be clung to, worshipped, or followed without actual application. All my teachings are like a raft useful for crossing the river, but once you have crossed, must you continue to carry the raft upon your head? Yet there remains one sentiment that I cannot easily bow to. Love is divided into three types: joy, sorrow, and serenity. These three emotions are always present in the body. They rise up like a burning flame and then return to a state of calm. I advise you first to reflect upon the intensity of your feelings, to observe and understand them, and to discern their origins. Whether they be joy or sorrow, trace them back to their source. Once you uncover the source, you will find that everything is non-self. And we speak of it as if it were the vast blue sky, empty yet all, encompassing like a grand canvas. Continue to abide in that state, and gradually you will see that the previous sparks of emotion will subside. A state of supreme tranquility deep within your inner being will no longer be disturbed. Look inward, and you will discover what is mistaken or erroneous, and you will find that the hardest thing to overcome is that soft, fragile nature, for ignorance is the root of all afflictions. My insight comes from meditation. Meditation can dispel ignorance. Beyond meditation, no act of prayer, asceticism, ritualistic offerings, or any other form can achieve this. If even a slight displeasure from someone unsettles you, that is the truth. For most offerings are simply attempts to win favor. Do not let those sweet words mislead you. If you are criticized and feel a touch of sorrow, that is acceptable, just do not let anger show. For in it you reveal what you lack. The only task is to confront one's own self. If life is truly filled with suffering, you will have no time to complain. If life becomes too indulgent, where will you find the strength? Act without shame, with complete personal integrity, for we live for ourselves. Your destiny arises from within. When you choose your path, you choose your fate. Do not be overly burdened by the past. Live fully in the present and cast your gaze toward a promising future.